Satou was an ugly, peanut-brained loser who got bullied for loving the ending of Game of Thrones. However, his life changed when his hot teacher became desperate to have his children. One day, while eating lunch with his friend Ren, Satou's simp brain goes into overdrive as he starts imagining the clouds as giant melons he wants to shove his face into. This catches Ren's attention, but Satou spits out a nasty lie, claiming he was just thinking about how his face looks like Reptile from Mortal Kombat. Feeling a vibe from his cloud fantasy, Satou excuses himself to rub one out in the bathroom, only to bump into a shawty on his way who tells him to use the eyes his mother gave him. In the bathroom, Satou nearly joins the Egyptians in the afterlife upon witnessing his teacher, Kana, in the men's restroom. The pathetic loser tries to leave immediately, but the door won't open. Confused, he asks her why the hell a woman is in the men's bathroom. She explains that the women's restroom is being cleaned, so she decided to use this one instead. Unlike your typical annoying anime chick, Kana takes full responsibility for the situation. Satou starts screaming for help, remembering how Kana made even delinquent students roll over like poisoned dogs. Just then, the loser football team walks in, giving Satou a sliver of hope. But before he can do anything, Kana shoves his face right into her pillows, whispering for him to keep quiet. Forgetting that Kana is a teacher and not some random thought, the desperate Satou starts a full-on squeezing competition, which she actually enjoys.
Please don't move too quickly or else I'm gonna... Sorry, but please, just go really slowly.
After happily accepting Satou's free massage package, she tells him to stop, but the fool is too far gone. His brain is completely fried. Instead of being satisfied, the degenerate decides to rub one out right in front of her.
Just a bit more.
Okay.
Later, Satou starts feeling a bit sleepy, so he heads to the nurse's office, only to run into Kana again. She asks if he's feeling unwell, and the clown lies, saying he sprained his ankle when he's really just feeling drowsy. Kana, burning up with a fever, claims she can't move, while Satou wonders why her Mount Fujis are sticking out despite her being sick. Thinking fast, he rummages through a bunch of medications like a thief searching for a fever reliever, only to stumble upon drugs that are inserted like toilet paper. Kana turns as red as Mitsu's eyes at first, but then gets into position and tells Satou to stick it in. Being an ugly, pathetic loser, the dummy blindfolds himself like he's a cockroach that can find its target without vision, only to end up sticking it in the wrong hole, making Kana let out joyful noises unto the Lord.
Sorry, but I can't take it much longer. Just hurry up. Ah! Idiot, that's not where it goes. The one further up.
After missing more than 6 times like a total failure, he finally lands the shot. Suddenly, a shawty walks in, and Kana quickly hides Satou under the sheets. She tells the intruder that all the noise was just her trying to grab her phone and falling off the bed. Once the coast is clear, Kana thanks Satou for his help, but the idiot's sleepiness turns into a full-blown fever, which she apparently rubbed off on him. Now that she's feeling better, she leaves the loser alone, giving him time to sulk over all the girls on Roblox who ghosted him. Later, she pays him a visit, not to pamper him like a cute poodle, but to put him through the exact same crap he put her through. As it rains like crazy the next morning, Satou seeks shelter in a laundromat, only to encounter Kana again. Seeing that she's drenched, he suggests drying her clothes in the dryer. She refuses, saying only her OnlyFans viewers are privileged to see her featherless. He hands her his shirt to make things less awkward.
Hey, that's pretty good.
The monstrous sound of the thunder makes Satou want to crawl back into his hole, but to his surprise, it makes Kana want to crawl back into her mother's womb. Wrapping their arms together, Kana begs Satou to save her from the thunder demon. To make matters worse, the electricity cuts out, pausing the drying process. The duo locates the fuse box, which is at a height only a Nephilim can reach. Kana uses Satou as a ladder, unaware that his brain is being fried by her soft skin. They lose their balance, accidentally spilling laundry detergent all over themselves. They decide to give it another shot, only for Kana's shirt to burst as her weapons of mass destruction jiggle, causing a massive earthquake.
I know. Let's give this another try. This time you'll be on my shoulders. Don't be like that. You are underestimating my strength.
That's the issue. Now's not a good time for me.
Satou, I think there's something poking me in the back of my head.
That weekend, Satou almost pisses his pants upon encountering Kana at his mother's house. After a shock that would have killed an elderly person, he asks why she's there. She explains she's babysitting, and mentions that his mom and her are close friends. She remarks that the baby hates her and recalls a call with her parents where they pressured her to have kids. She claims she isn't fussy yet. She just wants a man who's younger, good at caring for people, and can coexist with children. The man of her dreams sounds exactly like Satou, causing a panic when she suggests they couldn't date because she's his teacher. Later, Kana and Satou's sister chill in an inflatable pool, urging Satou to join while he tries to hide his brick. Just then, the little girl pulls Kana's bikini strap. Satou and Kana both reach to fix it, resulting in an accidental kiss. After kissing for 10 minutes straight, they pull away. That night, when Satou's mom returns, she tells Kana that Satou would be the perfect husband. Kana calls him a cultured bore when she finds him under a futon. His room is a mess of dirty manga and games, and he demands to know how she got in. She explains his mom invited her. His mom then bursts in with drinks to celebrate Kana's new apartment. One drink causes Kana to pass out, as she is a total lightweight. Waking up, Kana shows Satou's mom a photo album from high school, pointing at a younger boy who inspired her to become a teacher. She claims she owes her entire life to him, unaware that Satou is the boy in the picture. She then recalls the time she saw him attempting to jump off a bridge. Before she could save him, he jumped in, and she followed shortly after. Taking him back to her place, she made him wash up while he called her a superhero for rushing in to save him like that. She warned him that jumping into a river during winter is dangerous, but the boy claimed he wanted to become an adult after watching a movie where a character did the same. Kana assured him there was no way a river jump would make him a man, adding that while being an adult is fun, once the bills start coming in, he'd wish he were a child again. In the present, Kana reveals that it was this pipsqueak in the photo who inspired her to fulfill her dream of becoming a teacher. Meanwhile, Satou gets goosebumps, realizing he was the boy who inadvertently created the school's most feared teacher. To his disappointment, Kana admits she doesn't remember the boy's name. Satou's mom is about to reveal his identity, but he quickly covers her mouth. However, his cover is blown when Kana traces the boy's last name to his. Satou finally confesses, certain she'll be mad, but she assures him she's happy and, quote, can't wait to play with his sword again. Since Kana is so obsessed with him, Satou's mom orders her to take care of her son. Kana assumes this means cleaning his room, but the mom clarifies she means taking care of him through some serious plot development. She's dying for a grandchild. When they are left alone, Kana hugs Satou, thanking him again for the inspiration. He calls her weird for being obsessed with a comment from 10 years ago. Just then, she discovers one of his cultured manga. She asks if he's ever done any of the cultured stuff inside. He says no. Taking off her plot armor, she confesses she isn't used to that stuff either but would love to learn, like Kanye West and Lil Pump if he taught her. She gives him an HD view of her Mount Fuji's, which hits Satou's eyes like pepper spray. Blushing, she tells him that outside of school, he should call her Big Sis like he used to, while pressing her melons against him.
Come on, Satou, I said it was fine. You're not even gonna give them a little squeeze? Something's hard. What is poking at me?
Things are getting spicy when Satou's sister walks in, and he yells at Kana to put her plot armor back on.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Later, acting like a drunk elf, Kana suggests a drink of water, but refuses to take it unless he transfers it via his mouth. Hearing his mom approaching, Satou decides to get it over with and follows orders. However, he pulls away from the kiss, worried that if the news got out, Kana's hard-earned teaching career would be over. Kana, on the other hand, doesn't mind making the headlines and kisses him anyway. Their fun is interrupted by Satou's mom, who is thrilled to see them making such progress. The next day at school, Satou runs into Kana and apologizes for the night before. He tells her she can crash at his place anytime, calling her Big Sis. Since she only gave him permission to use that name outside of school, she embarrasses him in front of everyone, leaving him shaking in fear. During the summer, Satou and his mom are invited to a wedding in the Caribbean. Naturally, Kana is there too. Satou asks his mom why, and she explains that since his dad couldn't make it, she gave the extra ticket to Kana so it wouldn't go to waste. Hugging him, his mom tells him to enjoy the beach because Kana will soon be part of the family. She adds that it's obvious Kana wants to clap him, making Satou panic until his mom calls him a dumbhead and leaves the two to bond. Kana pulls Satou aside to a secluded part of the beach. Once there, she's excited to jump in, but Satou is dying of anxiety. He snaps out of it when she asks him to apply sunscreen. As he applies it, Kana lets out joyful noises unto the Lord. In the middle of the massage, Kana accidentally utters that she loves him. Embarrassed, she jumps into the ocean, only for Satou to have to rescue her immediately because she can't swim. Back on land, she thanks him for not letting her meet Jason. Claiming something bit her in the water, they spot a warning sign about venomous snakes, and Kana hugs Satou tightly for protection. Accidentally, her melons flip into his hand. A flustered Satou lets go, but she forgives him on the condition that he keeps it a secret. She then claims she can't die until he says he loves her too. Satou, not wanting his future wife to die, offers to suck out the venom. To his shock, the snake bit her right near the promised land. Without hesitation, he flips her over like a pancake and sucks the venom out like a Burger King smoothie. Later, they inform Satou's mom, but she doesn't believe Kana passed out from the pain, especially since the hospital confirmed she wasn't poisoned. Satou's cultured mom smells a lie from Asgard and asks if they got civilized, which Satou denies. After watching the couple get married, Satou blushes and tells Kana they should return to this same spot once he graduates. Some days later, Kana goes on a girls' night with her friend Mayu, telling her about the exciting adventures she had on the trip. Mayu correctly guesses the adventures were with Satou. Just then, Satou calls Kana, inviting her over for some Netflix and chill, which she happily accepts. As she gets distracted and continues talking to him, Mayu starts dreaming about Suzuki. During lunch the next day, Suzuki gets shocked when Satou tells him that Kana is now officially his girlfriend. However, he's mostly upset that Satou won't be eating lunch with him anymore and reminds him that literally every other student is scared of his face. Satou then reminds Suzuki that he'll be graduating soon and wishes him luck with his non-existent social life before running off to meet Kana. Minutes later, Suzuki accepts that he's destined to be alone and tries to enjoy his lunch in peace. But then Mayu suddenly shows up and asks if he wants to eat together. After taking a moment to make sure this isn't a drug-induced fantasy, he asks if she's okay with his hideous face. She holds his hand and says she'll never feel scared around him. Moments later, she takes a peek at his lunch and commends his cooking skills. After also saying that she loves trying new dishes, she suggests switching some of their food and tries to feed him. Upon realizing that he just wanted her to drop it in his plate, Mayu freaks out and tries to explain that feeding students is perfectly normal. The next moment, she slips, and after he rips off her skirt while trying to save her, Suzuki apologizes and offers to help her up. When she complains about being stuck, he reaches in and lifts her out of the water but accidentally turns on the faucet, causing her little snail trap to get power washed.
What's the matter?
Moments later, he apologizes again and hands over his sweater since her clothes got soaked. Hours later, Kana notices that Mayu has been wearing the sweater all day and asks if she has feelings for Suzuki. Mayu immediately denies it and says a teacher should never get freaky with her students, causing Kana to regret all the secret makeout sessions with Satou. Just then, Mayu sees that Suzuki left his bus pass in the sweater, so she quickly runs out to join him on the train. However, they end up just inches away from each other because of the crowd. Mayu also notices that her shirt got stuck in the door, so she tries to pull it out, but a sudden lane change causes her to slam into Suzuki's body. After controlling the demons in his mind, and the one rapidly growing in his pants, Suzuki asks her to get off, but she refuses and explains that her shirt popped open. To make matters worse, she forgot to put on her melon wraps after what happened during lunch, so he offers to shield her with his jacket. The next moment, another lane change causes him to slam her against the door. And after realizing that he can't step back anymore, Suzuki offers to help her with the buttons. However, after getting the first few buttons done, he grabs her melons, thinking they are buttons, and spends the next few minutes aggressively juicing them until she gets tired and quietly moans, "Harder, you dense fuck." Much later, they finally get to the station, but an officer notices Mayu's rumpled shirt and asks if Suzuki was assaulting her on the train. After he says no, the officer gets a lot more suspicious, so Mayu grabs his arm and says they are a couple. She then notices the shocked look on Suzuki's face and tells him to play along so the officer can leave. However, Suzuki becomes convinced that she's just trying to save him. So he tells her to stop acting and says he can handle whatever happens. But this causes her head to spin as she now thinks that he hates the idea of dating her. Several days later, Suzuki finds himself in a tough spot, as several onlookers watch in shock while he pays for 2 lucky sets, which are widely considered to be toys for little kids or creeps trying to lure in their next victim. Just then he hears a familiar voice and sees Mayu, who also came to get a lucky set. So they start heading home together, and he explains that they are actually for his siblings. After Mayu admits that she has always loved them, Suzuki realizes that it's raining and gets a little confused about how to return home without getting drenched. Thankfully, his siblings Suzu and Rei show up to give him an umbrella, so he asks Mayu to walk with them so she won't get soaked as well. Minutes later, she desperately tries to hide how good it feels to be walking beside him while he continues telling Suzu and Rei to stop playing in the rain. After he apologizes for all the noise, they both ask to see the lucky sets he bought, but he refuses and says they have to wait until they get back home. Naturally, they ignore him and open the lucky sets. But while Rei gets excited to see his panda, Suzu loses it and asks why he bought a goldfish. Upon hearing this, Mayu offers to trade, since she also got a pan. So Suzu excitedly throws her goldfish in the air. The next moment, it falls right into Mayu's melons and continues flapping against the tip. So she tries to hide her expression, hoping it will eventually fall out, while internally screaming, "Why is my life an eki hentai plot?" Like that isn't enough, Suzu forcefully hugs her to thank her for the panda, but this causes the pressure on her melons to intensify. Just then, Rei spots a truck coming, so Suzuki pulls them out of the road and crouches with the umbrella to keep Mayu covered from the rain. However, he accidentally shoves the umbrella handle into her kitty and starts moving it around to resist the wind, while Mayu resists the urge to sing happy songs and squirt. After the truck finally passes, Suzuki tries to check on her, but she tells him not to worry and takes off running so he won't notice what happened. Hours later, her sister Seiya barges in as she takes a bath and asks why she still buys lucky sets at her age. But Mayu insists that it's a toy for grown-ups and starts planning her next goon session with it. A couple of days after this, Satou shows up at a bar to carry Kana home because she drank way more than her liver could handle. After thanking Mayu for calling, he heads out, leaving Mayu to wonder if she'll ever find someone who cares about her enough to show up like Satou did. She then drifts into a dream about the day she was meant to write the teacher's exam. In an effort to avoid traffic, she decided to run all the way to school, but after tripping and breaking her shoes, she accepted defeat and thought her dreams of becoming a teacher were over. Just then, she saw Suzuki's face for the first time and almost had a heart attack before realizing that he just wanted to help. After she explained the situation to him, he suddenly carried her on his back and started sprinting across multiple blocks to get her to school. At that moment, Mayu realized that there was a lot more to his ugly face, but his speed had caused her melon wraps to rip open. To make matters worse, his belt buckle was also pounding into her cakes as he ran up a flight of stairs. But luckily, he made it to school before she reached the point of no return. She immediately thanked him and apologized for causing such an inconvenience. But he said it was no problem since he loves exercising and quickly ran off before she could ask for his name. After the trip down memory lane, Mayu realizes that Suzuki has been carrying her, so she asks how he knew where she was, and he explains that Satou gave him a call after getting Kana home. Right then, Mayu realizes that it's the perfect opportunity to tell him how she feels, but she panics at the last moment and simply thanks him for the help. Several weeks later, Mayu, Sai, and Suzuki head over to the second academy to plan a festival. And after they introduce themselves to a student council member named Takashi, he returns the favor and apologizes for the lateness of his advisor. Just then, Hikari barges in and hugs him before taking one look at the girls and asking if they are his type. Takashi immediately tries to stop her from talking, but she continues teasing him and says Mayu would be a perfect fit for his baby carrot. After school, Takashi returns home and decides to handle the festival plans by himself because Hikari is obviously too immature to take anything seriously. However, the moment he enters his apartment, she welcomes him back and says the heater in her place broke down, which is why she decided to move to his place. He immediately tells her to leave, but she ignores this and drags him into her melons to get some extra warmth. After struggling to get free and failing, he decides to accept his fate because she has been treating him like a living teddy bear since they first started living close to each other. Several minutes later, her grip finally loosens. So he pulls himself up and realizes that the excessive force caused her melon wraps to open up. After getting his demons under control, he tries to fix it, but then she grabs him again. This time though, he ends up with a mouth full of melons. And after struggling to get free, his intrusive thoughts take over, causing him to continue drinking until she wakes up and catches him in the act. He tries to apologize, but she rubs his head and acts like she is perfectly okay with it before saying that she has to go make food at her place. After she leaves, Takashi feels relieved and thanks his maker that she was actually cool with it. Meanwhile, Hikari starts freaking out by the door and decides to do something about their relationship because he might bend her over if she continues treating him like the little guy she used to play with. The next day, they end up at the store together, and after looking at the kind of toys they once loved to play with, Takashi admits to being a little surprised that she could be so thoughtful. However, Hikari finally tells him that the whole point of coming to the store was so that he could help her do some grown-up shopping. Sensing the evil intent in her eyes, Takashi tries to leave, but she holds him back and dashes to the Victoria's Secret store before telling him to pick a new set for her. When he asks why, she reminds him that her melons have gotten bigger than the ones at home and runs into the dressing room so he can choose a pair. Takashi then looks around and realizes that the other chicks are worried about a little creep watching them shop. So he grabs the nearest pair and hands them to Hikari in the dressing room. She is surprised by the quick choice, but after taking a look at the pair, shock turns to fear as she becomes convinced that Takashi is a freak with no sort of moral code guiding him. However, instead of heading back out and having a proper conversation with him, she decides to see how far he is willing to go and changes into the slutty set. The next moment, she gets embarrassed by how it makes her look and considers changing back. But then Takashi asks if she is done. As soon as she says yes, he grabs her arm and takes off with his eyes closed to avoid looking at the other girls. Hikari then tries to explain that she is very much exposed, but he refuses to listen, thinking she is just trying to tease him again. At the escalator moments later, he finally stops and tries to tell her about the festival. But after turning back, he sees her melons swinging in the air and freezes in shock. She then asks him to pull up the zipper because she has to hold it down at the back. While struggling to pull it past her giant jugs, she pulls him back in and ends up stuck on the railing. After minutes of happy noises, they stop by at a restaurant to get snacks. So Takashi apologizes for being so careless. Hikari then promises to make him pay, but after pouting for a couple of minutes, she pulls him close for a hug and says she can never be upset with him over something so trivial. She then leaves to get drinks while he stays on the seat and wonders why she is pretending like it was no big deal when her expression a few minutes ago showed that she desperately wanted to get back. The next moment, she gets back with a weird drink combo and starts forcing him to drink, so he decides to accept that her freaky episode was just a one-time thing. Days later, their school goes on a hiking trip. But while everyone excitedly follows the trail, Takashi tries to hide from Hikari because he hasn't been able to get her melons out of his head. When she finally finds him and asks why he has been acting strange recently, he slips, so she grabs his arm to save him. Unfortunately, their weight causes the branch to snap. They fall into the raging stream and end up in a cave minutes later. While Takashi tries to stay warm, Hikari watches the rain and continues asking why he has been acting weird. After recalling that he has always had a bad experience with cold temperatures, she asks if he is okay and sees that he is already experiencing the first stages of hypothermia. However, with no other way of making him warm, she decides to do the unthinkable and goes commando before telling him to hug her. Without hesitation, Takashi places his head between her warm chest pillows. But even after feeling a little warm, he becomes dizzy and asks her for water. She immediately tries to grab a bottle. But then, he sees a drop trickling down one of her melons and starts drinking it without even realizing. In a bid to stop him, she tries to pour out some tea, but it spills all over her plot cannons, and he immediately starts drinking right from the source. When he reaches the fountain, she tries to stop him, but his thirst overpowers her. Moments later, she cleans him up and rubs his head while he rests on her thighs. In that moment, Takashi realizes that he has been overreacting because she has only ever wanted to take care of him. After reminiscing on all the other times she nursed him back to health, he thanks her and admits to being in love with her before falling asleep. Hikari then frantically tries to wake him up so he can say it again. The following week, the festival finally starts, and as usual, Suzuki ends up in a tight spot because Mayu decided to invite him so they could stay together. When she apologizes for bringing it up at the last moment, he acts like it's not a problem and asks why she is dressed like a student. She then says the other students would have felt weird seeing a teacher walking around and asks if the outfit looks bad. After he compliments her, they run into Hikari, who then teases Mayu and asks why she is so obsessed with his meat stick. Mayu immediately panics, since he could have heard, but Hikari quickly changes the topic to a cops and robbers game she set up for the students. After putting her in cuffs, she shoves them both into an empty classroom and tells Suzuki where to find the key before also suggesting that they take this opportunity to do what they have always wanted to do. As soon as she leaves, Suzuki tries to find the key. And when Mayu asks if he heard what Hikari said earlier, he denies it while simultaneously losing his mind because he heard every word and can't stop thinking about the fact that she has feelings for him. After finally grabbing the key, he turns to face her and panics, causing the key to fall into her shirt and snap her melon wraps open. The next moment, her chest cannons pop out, so he quickly tries to find the key, but she tells him not to bother because it is currently sitting on her cakes. When Takashi suddenly shows up at the door, she says the only option is for him to grab it, and makes him shut his eyes so she can give directions. However, despite hearing her instructions clearly, Suzuki grabs her jugs first. So she redirects his massive hands to her cakes. After he finally grabs the key and gives her a taste of heaven in the process, he apologizes for always causing trouble, but she recalls how he always helps her out and says she will never get upset at anything he does. Upon hearing this, he reminds her of all their freaky accidents to make sure she knows what he is apologizing for, and she still insists that it's not a problem before confessing her feelings for him. While he freezes in shock, she gets embarrassed and runs out. So he tries to stop her and sees our two favorite couples getting cozy in the hallway. By evening the next day, Takashi and Seiya are shocked to find Hikari trapped in the floorboards of an old school building. Several minutes before this, a teacher had asked both of them to patrol the area since a lot of students were still having fun with the festival activities. While Takashi was excited to take up the job, Seiya was a little worried since it was getting late. But she decided to trust Takashi and commended how mature he had become. Hearing this caused him to get excited, and while they were making small talk, Hikari got jealous because Takashi had only ever been that excited to talk to her. Out of spite, she decided to run into the building to scare him. But just a few seconds later, she fell through the floor and got trapped. After making sure she is actually okay, Takashi and Seiya ask why she is in the building. So she admits that she just wanted to embarrass Takashi so he would drop the manly act. Despite this, Takashi decides to let it slide, since no one got hurt. But then, Seiya starts pulling his jacket and says they both need to go call someone. As they turn to leave, Hikari gets jealous again and grabs his feet to stop him, before realizing that she just caused him to fall through the floorboards as well. Luckily, he survives the fall without any injuries, but after looking up, he gets an eyeful of Kitty and asks why her clothes didn't fall through as well. When he tells her to jump down, she explains that her dress got snagged in the boards and tries to free herself. But then the cold air causes her bladder to reach breaking point. At that moment, Takashi decides to help her up by pushing her legs, but she tells him to stop because she won't be able to hold it in. Unfortunately, he barely hears her through the boards and continues trying until she starts squirming and loudly explains the situation. Thankfully, he finally hears her and quickly grabs a bucket. But then she begs him to move her pot covers to the side so they won't get soaked. Just as she finally unloads into the bucket, Seiya returns with Suzuki, and they both start searching for the source of the waterfall while Hikari distracts them and prays that her bladder empties before they realize what is happening. Much later, Suzuki fixes the floorboards and discusses what happened with Takashi, while Hikari gets embarrassed and decides to make Takashi piss himself so they can get even. As she tries to grab him, he walks out with Seiya and Suzuki, causing her already fragile heart to shatter into a million pieces. A little while after this, a psycho in a bear costume starts attacking student couples in the halls. By then, Takashi has just met up with Mayu to watch the rest of the festival, but then Seiya shows up to tell them about the bear. Mayu initially gets worried for the students, but then Seiya Shia explains that all the couples who were attacked seem to be having a great time with each other because of it. As a result, all heartbroken loners are now chasing the bear around campus because they believe it is the secret to finding their one true love. Seiya tries to explain further, but after spotting the psycho bear running to safety, she realizes that Mayu has also taken off to join the chase. So she tries to find her. Takashi, on the other hand, gets worried because he has an idea of who is inside the bear costume. Minutes later, Hikari enters the sports room and takes off the helmet to finally get some fresh air. After wondering why everyone suddenly became obsessed with capturing her, she remembers what Takashi did and wonders how he went from depending on her for everything to now becoming a RIZz master. Right then, he walks in and asks if she is okay, but she gets shocked and demands to know how he knew she was the psycho bear. After saying that he just had a feeling, he tries to leave with her, but then another wave of miserable virgins starts running through the hall. So she pulls him back inside and shuts the door. She then checks to make sure they are gone before calling out to Takashi and realizing that he fell inside the costume. The next moment, her phone turns on, and after realizing where the fishy smell is coming from, he asks why she entered the costume without plot covers. She then says it was too hot to have regular clothes on and tries to pull him out, but the friction causes her melons to fall on his magic stick. He quickly notices this and tells her to relax because he won't be able to resist those milkers, while also staring into the kitty he loves the most. This causes Hikari to get embarrassed, so she continues squirming until his magic stick casts a spell on her face and paints her with a premature "I love you" load. Minutes later, they get help from Suzuki and Seiya. But as Takashi turns to leave, Hikari pulls him back and says he belongs to her forever. At that moment, Mayu, who has been running this entire time, spots a pair of boots and thinks it's the bear. So she hugs it and confesses her love for Suzuki before looking up and seeing the shocked look on his face. She immediately tries to apologize, but he stops her and says he doesn't have the finances to take care of a plot-heavy baddie like her. This causes her to get sad, but then he asks if she would be willing to date until he gets his life together so they can get married. After she passes out from shock, Seiya asks if he has lost it, but he gets confused and asks if that hasn't always been the plan. Shortly after this, another teacher named Chizuru sees Hikari and Takashi holding hands and wishes she had someone she could clap in secret at a restaurant. Days later, a brokey named Tanaka hears about Satou and Suzuki's forbidden love stories and gets surprised since he has never had a girlfriend in his miserable life. However, he decides not to let it get to him and says it's probably because the teachers in their school are easy. Just then, Satou tells him that Takashi has also been getting sloppy tops from Hikari. And after taking a moment to process, Tanaka promises to get a girlfriend in the next 3 months and runs away to hide his tears. Much later, work in the kitchen gets a lot more intense. So he accepts that finding love would be impossible when his entire life revolves around steroid-pumping shafts. Just as he heads out to pour out the expired grease, Chizuru shows up and gets drenched in oil. So he quickly takes her to the changing room and offers to get a new shirt. When she coldly says she would rather enjoy a cup of coffee in quiet than listen to him rant about being sorry, his heart freezes over as he recalls why everyone in school is terrified of being in the same room with her. He eventually manages to get a new shirt and patiently waits for her to take it. But then she suddenly takes off the shirt he ruined, revealing 2 massive jugs that deep fry the little brain matter he has left. After taking a couple of minutes to get his head straight, he apologizes once again and tries to leave. But he slips on her grease-soaked shirt and accidentally takes off her melon wraps. Once again, her milkers and hot bod cause his brain to lag. So she tells him to get off, but while trying to step back, he realizes that his ankle got sprained and uses her melons as a cushion to keep himself from falling. Instead of attacking him like a sensible adult, Chizuru asks if he needs help with the sprain, but he completely ignores that to focus on the subtle movements he just noticed at the tip of her melon. This finally forces a reaction out of her, so she blocks his view and tells him to stop looking. The next moment, Tanaka's brain implodes, and after she eventually puts on the new shirt, he apologizes again. She then tries to help with his ankle, but he gets flustered and offers to get her new pants as well before running off. At school the next day, Chizuru asks Hikari for help because she has finally gotten tired of being the most feared and avoided teacher. Hikari then says her main problem is her lack of expression. And while Chizuru takes a look in the mirror to fix her resting mean face, Hikari further explains how she has to find someone who easily expresses themselves so she can learn from them. At that moment, Chizuru remembers how Tanaka easily expressed his creepy desires yesterday and decides to use him as her guinea pig. By the weekend, he is shocked to find her dressed like Santa's little helper in his living room with a camera pointed directly at his face. When he asks why, she explains her new mission to improve her social life and says he is the only one she can learn from. But then he says he actually wants to learn about her first. She then hooks the camera up to a screen and shows him clips from when she was younger, and how she always wrote her name on anything that belonged to her. After a couple more clips, he sees a lonely Christmas pic from the year before and gets worried. So she admits that life has been a little lonely since she left her parents. When she suddenly says that this Christmas feels a lot better, his virgin mind immediately thinks she has feelings for him. But he quickly cures his own delusions and offers to help her make another video. Right then, he sees her kitty on the screen and panics, causing the table to lose balance as the champagne bottle drops. Chizuru dives in to save the cake and ends up sitting on his head. The next moment, one of the bottles pops right under the happy spot and forces an expression she has never used before, part moan, part war cry. Tanaka then spots her name on her plot cover and asks if she also writes on them, but she blocks his face again and says he can't know about that just yet. Minutes later, she changes into his shorts and he apologizes for everything before thanking her for coming over. After she gives him a present, he also brings out a box for her and says he intended to use it as a first date gift. She then opens up the box and sees a large bear, so she immediately writes her name and thanks him with a smile before leaving. While he gets shocked to see that her gift is the plot cover she just took off, she realizes that she gave him the wrong gift. At a beach resort several weeks later, Tanaka struggles to believe his eyes when Chizuru shows up to spend the entire day with him. Days before this, he had just decided to escort her home as usual, but this time, she felt a strong need to thank him, despite him telling her not to worry about it so many times. After telling him about a lottery game and promising to share her wins equally with him, she played the game and won free tickets to the beach resort. Back in real time, he still struggles to believe that she would actually spend the entire day alone with him. Just as he starts realizing that she might have feelings, she drags him to a nice spot close to the water and immediately strips so they can start swimming. Unfortunately, Tanaka points out the no swimming sign, but this causes her to get embarrassed, so he runs around looking for other fun stuff they can do together. After finding a hermit crab for her to play with, he starts feeling bad that she won't enjoy the water like she wanted to. But then he sees her suitcase about to be swept off by the current. The next moment, she falls into the water and loses her kitty cover in the process, but he barely notices and jumps in to save her. She then tries to tell him what happened, but he quickly pushes her up and gets an eyeful of buns when he looks up. Despite this, he manages to push her onto the edge, but her new crab friends get curious about the massive milk jugs they just dropped in its face. After it grabs one, Chizuru falls back on his shoulders and asks for help, so he tries to pull the crab off but ends up grabbing the wrong melon. Much later, he asks if she lost anything to the water. And while checking on her stuff, he spots a magazine about date spots and asks if she planned this whole thing to make him feel good. When she admits to it and says she didn't want him to get bored with her, he gets flustered and says he will never get bored with being with her. Hearing this causes Chizuru to feel better about their failed date, so she decides to head back to the hotel. But Tanaka starts to wonder why his heart won't stop racing. After a couple more days of going on dates, his heart continues racing every time he sees her face, so he decides to stop thinking about it and just go with the flow. On the last night of the trip, she takes him up a mountain trail and says they need to reach a high point to watch the stars. However, it suddenly starts raining, so they run into a cave to avoid the rain. While sitting there, Tanaka notices that she is upset, so he tells her not to worry about it before suddenly getting cold. As soon as he complains about it, she throws her melons on his chest to warm him up, but the excess weight causes him to slip. After tumbling down a hole, they end up in an unholy position. So Tanaka tries to get out, but she stops him and explains that they just entered a stalactite cave. He gets confused, so she further explains how long it takes for stalactites to grow and says they can't risk breaking them. The next moment, she starts slowly moving across his body to protect the stalactites, but accidentally shoves her milkers into his mouth. Minutes later, they safely get back up. Chizuru remains upset that they couldn't see the stars. Just then, the moonlight illuminates the entire cave, so they decide to settle for this. And Tanaka asks why she wanted to see the stars so badly. She explains that a shooting star would have been the perfect opportunity to wish for a certain student to fall in love with her. Upon hearing this, Tanaka starts laughing and decides to accept that he has fallen in love with her. But he forgets to use his inside voice and gets embarrassed when she responds like it's no big deal. However, after seconds of trying to hide her true feelings, she closes his eyes so he won't see her current expression. On Valentine's Day the following year, Tanaka starts losing hope in love because he still hasn't received any chocolate from Chizuru. When Takashi walks into class to show him the chocolate box Hikari made him, Tanaka loses it, but eventually decides to wait until Chizuru shows up. However, after hours of waiting, he decides to accept that she never had feelings for him and packs up to head home, only to see that a snowstorm has just started. Despite this, he decides to take the risk and walk home. But on the way out, he hears a loud thud and sees that Chizuru's body has just frozen up due to the insane temperature drop. He quickly takes her inside to warm up by a fireplace in one of the teachers' lounges. And after realizing that her clothes are drenched, she decides to take them off. Tanaka then expects her to casually strip while he watches like she usually would, but this time she tells him to face the other way. Afterwards, he spots a box of chocolates and tries to take a look, but she quickly grabs it, so he asks if Hikari made one for her as well. She then tries to explain, but the cold creeps in, so he suggests eating the chocolate to feel a little better. When she offers to share it with him, he tells her not to worry, since he still feels okay. So she tries to take a bite, but it suddenly melts all over her milk jugs. Just then, Tanaka tries to get up, but a quick slip launches his face straight into the chocolate. After eating the whole thing, he apologizes, but she tells him not to worry because she actually bought it for him. She further explains how Hikari helped her make it, which is why the boxes look similar. With Tanaka's hope and love restored, he reminds her of the time he confessed his feelings during the trip, and says he is ready to take their relationship to the next stage. Unfortunately, she rejects him, so he immediately tries to leave. But after taking a look outside, he sits again and regrets ever opening his mouth while she decides to wait until he graduates. Months later, he finally graduates and barely manages to hold back the tears while giving a speech because he failed to lose his versus card while in school. At home that evening, he is surprised to see Satou and the others. So Satou explained how they decided to go on a trip to celebrate his graduation. While they continue talking, the girls start cooking. But then, Chizuru suddenly spills butter all over her clothes. So Hikari tells Tanaka to get her some clean clothes to change into. In his room moments later, she congratulates him, and when he tries to thank her respectfully, she tells him to stop calling her teacher, since he is not a student anymore. Embarrassed, Tanaka becomes convinced that she hates his guts, so she brings out a tracksuit and walks out so she can change. However, she realizes that he misunderstood, and decides to tell him how she really feels after changing. After getting rid of her soiled clothes, she sees a framed picture of both of them and makes up her mind. But then she accidentally knocks it down and dives to save it. The next moment, a fishing line falls as well, and by the time Tanaka shows up to check on her, he finds her tangled up and stuck to the door. So he runs off to get a pair of scissors. Just then, she hears Hikari and Takashi coming to the room and tries to pull the line with her kitty instead of using her hands like a normal person. As expected, she runs out of energy and accepts that they are about to see her cake. But Tanaka jumps in at the last moment and shuts the door before getting an eyeful of plot. He then cuts her loose and tries to leave, but she suddenly hugs him and admits that she has wanted to date him for months, but she couldn't since he was still a student back then. After crying tears of joy, he takes her back to the living room so they can all plan the trip. Days later, the lovebirds all go on dates to improve their bond. And after a lot of chatting, Tanaka takes Chizuru to a tree for a makeout session. However, they get shocked to see that everyone else had the same idea. Which teacher is the hottest in your opinion? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to turn on post notifications after subscribing to make sure you never miss any of our degenerate updates.